Hi, I'm Antonia. This is Universally Me. Follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Clubhouse at Antonia Carlotta. And don't forget to join my Patreon, where I've got tons of old Universal content, plus pictures and memorabilia from my family's private collection. The Wolfman is technically a little later than most of the videos that I make on my channel. I usually stick to the Laemmle years, right? So when my Uncle Carl started Universal back in 1912, going up until about 1936 or so when he sold Universal. But I have gotten so many requests for a video about the Wolfman, and I mean, there's no doubt that he's one of the classic monsters. This is definitely my domain. So I'm really excited to finally get to this video. Here's where I may get in trouble. When I rank my Universal monsters, rarely do I rank the Wolfman at the top of my list. And I know that so many of you do. It kind of makes me think that there might be something that I'm missing, and I'm hoping that I find that in this video. And that's not to say that I don't like the Wolfman, I just don't think of him first. He's just not my favorite. Maybe it's just a Laemmle thing, like maybe I just naturally like Laemmle era monsters better? I don't know. But I also wonder if maybe it's just a werewolf thing. Like, I like werewolves, but they're just not my favorite monster in general. But Universal announced a new Wolfman project in the works, likely starring Ryan Gosling, and I am genuinely excited about this one. So over the next couple months, I want to make a couple videos about the classic werewolf movies. And today we are starting with the most famous one, the one that really started it all. Today's video is about The Wolfman. The Wolfman is a 1941 horror film starring Lon Chaney Jr. and featuring Claude Rains, Evelyn Ankers, Warren William, and Bela Lugosi. Unless you're new around here, you probably recognize the name Lon Chaney, and that's because his father, Lon Chaney Sr., was a famous actor in the decades earlier, known for his intricate makeup and expressive performances in films like The Hunchback of Notre Dame and The Phantom of the Opera. If you haven't yet seen my video about Lon Chaney Sr. or my tour of his hometown in Colorado Springs, I definitely recommend you give those a watch right after this video. In The Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr.'s character, Larry Talbot, returns home to Wales to bury his brother who just passed away and to repair his relationship with his father. While there, he meets Gwen, played by Evelyn Ankers, whom he takes a liking to. While the two of them are out one night with another friend, the friend is attacked by what looks like a wolf, and Larry Talbot jumps in to try to save her. In the scuffle, he's bitten, and sure enough, he turns into a werewolf. The Wolfman wasn't Universal's first werewolf movie. They had actually tried about 6 years earlier with a movie called Werewolf of London. That movie was a disappointment at the box office, and Universal was ready to try again. They reached out to writer Curt Siodmak, and he was able to churn out a script in just 7 weeks. There's a sad and beautiful story behind the Wolfman that I didn't know until I made this video. Curt Siodmak grew up in Germany, where he studied math and engineering, though writing was always his passion. And he managed to make a name for himself in Germany as a journalist and an author until Hitler came to power and Curt Siodmak was forced to flee Germany, first to France and then the UK and finally to the United States. In an interview with the Writers Guild of America in 1999, Siodmak said, "I am the Wolfman. I was forced into a fate I didn't want." Siodmak had created the Wolfman as the story of somebody whose destiny was cursed by forces he couldn't control. The Wolfman was originally titled Destiny, and before the part went to Lon Chaney Jr., Larry Talbot was to be played by actor Dick Foran. Chaney wasn't known as a horror actor before this, but he had just finished working on Man-Made Monster with George Wagner, the director of The Wolfman, and George Wagner wanted to bring Chaney on for this project too. A very important man is responsible for the look of the Wolfman, and that very important man is makeup artist Jack Pierce. Somehow I have not yet made a video about Jack Pierce. I don't know how that's happened, but I'm sure that any classic horror lover here knows exactly who he is. He's the brilliant mind who created the looks of Frankenstein and the Bride of Frankenstein and the Mummy. The production was pretty quick, and it sounds like it wasn't too tumultuous. That being said, I did hear a couple stories from set that I want to share with you. First, I guess a couple days before filming started, Lon Chaney got drunk and vandalized studio property. As punishment, George Wagner gave his dressing room away to Evelyn Ankers, which Chaney was not happy about. In exchange, he would sneak up behind Evelyn in full wolf costume just to scare her. Another story, not Lon Chaney's fault. One scene was supposed to have a bear, and it actually ended up getting cut, but that bear got loose and chased Evelyn Ankers up a ladder. The other story that I have actually now just makes me think that maybe Evelyn Ankers had a bad time on this shoot, because I guess there's a scene where she was supposed to faint, but because of the fog fumes around her, she actually fainted, and nobody noticed her until they were breaking down the set. The Wolfman was released December 12th, just 5 days after the attack on Pearl Harbor. And this timing didn't really work to the film's advantage, especially when it came to reviews. Variety said that The Wolfman was dubious entertainment at this particular time, though they did later add that it had good direction and a performance by an above-par assemblage of players. The New York Times just didn't think that the wolf was scary at all. But I think maybe audiences were looking for an escape, and the movie did all right with them. In just a few months, The Wolfman made over $1 million on a budget of $180,000. Lon Chaney Jr. would go on to play the Wolfman 4 more times. In Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman, House of Dracula, House of Frankenstein, and Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein. Before The Wolfman came along, a lot of werewolf lore was pretty varied. Where movies like Dracula or Frankenstein came straight from a book, The Wolfman was pieced together from bits of folklore and myths and superstition, and a little bit of inspiration from its predecessor, The Werewolf of London. The Wolfman created and popularized some myths that we still see in pop culture today. Curt Siodmak invented the association of werewolves with the pentagram, which we would later see in An American Werewolf in London and Cursed. It's debated whether he invented silver as the werewolf kryptonite. I've seen pretty convincing arguments on either side, but he definitely made that mainstream. And he ignited the association of the wolf with the moon. Then there's the poem recited in the film. Even a man who is pure of heart and says his prayers by night may become a wolf when the wolfsbane blooms and the autumn moon is bright. Many people thought that this was ancient folklore, but Siodmak just made it up. In future films, the poem would be changed to when the moon is full and bright, further solidifying the place of the full moon in werewolf lore. I mentioned earlier that Lon Chaney would go on to play the Wolfman 4 more times. Universal also did a Wolfman remake in 2010, and like I said, they're working on another one right now. And if you watch my videos, I'm sure you know that these days I am cautiously optimistic when it comes to Universal remakes. I don't know, I really liked The Invisible Man. I just don't want to get hurt again. Like I said earlier, I already told you that the Wolfman's not my favorite monster. While I do have way more respect for the film after making this video, and way more respect especially for Curt Siodmak after making this video, maybe it's a good thing that the Wolfman's not my favorite monster, because like now there's no option in the remake except for me to be pleasantly surprised by the outcome. So that's what I'm gonna try to go with right now. I've been trying to make my way through all the other werewolf movies. So I watched An American Werewolf in London and Paris. I watched Cursed. One of my friends recommended Ginger Snaps to me. Tell me what other werewolf movies I should be watching. I also just want to know what you think of The Wolfman. I want to know what you think of Lon Chaney Jr. I just want to know all the things. Just let me know everything in the comments below. Let me know what you think about the new remake. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have so much fun making these with you guys. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Clubhouse at Antonia Carlotta. Check out my Patreon for bonus content, and thank you so much for being here. Bye.